because this was like very classical French. So it would be like game birds were like snipe, widget, teal, mallard, pheasants, which would come in still warm. They'd just been shot, so you're plucking them. You're plucking them, you're cleaning them, you're gutting them, you're tying them, you're hanging them. Everything's made from scratch. So it was more that the tasks were extremely demanding.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Heart Media podcast. Today we had Stephen Nairn, who is a very inspiring chef. We had a great chinwag with him. He's Scottish, so obviously that was common ground.
Had a fantastic time. We spoke a lot about, coming up as a chef, working in 3 Michelin star environments, what that's like, managing relationships through the whole thing, moving to Australia.
Moving to New York.
Yeah, really interesting guy, super passionate. You're going to love this one. Yeah. Stephen, welcome to the Heart Media podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Obviously, it's going to be a good one. We can't shut up, and we just started, which is a good thing. Already chatting.
We're on our jollies.
We're on our jollies.
We just taught Tyrone what jollies means.
Teach the audience too. What are the jollies?
Jolly is holiday, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm off on my jollies.
Yeah.
Tyrone with his suitcase. Yeah.
Oh my god. Just so everybody knows at home as well, anyone that's listening, Ellie's accent, endless source of entertainment for us at the Heart Media. It's kind of become its own.
We've got our own language now.
It's because it's got its own presence now in the office. Its own person, her accent.
Yeah. We're learning off each other. And then
So
Stephen's
good.
here from Scotland, so great addition, to hear another northern
Subtitles may
accent.
be required.
Same for me, I think. Yeah.
No, I love the way it sounds. So good. So, Stephen, we can start from the start, telling your story about, your journey as a chef and the man that you are today.
It's a long story. How far do you want to go back?
Let's go back to
I would
the
say
beginning.
I've been
As far
cooking
as it
for
Since
20 years.
Since you were 15, 16, right?
Yeah, since I was about 15, 16.
That was when you got your apprenticeship, correct?
Well, actually, no, I left school, on a jolly. Didn't really know
Good
what
boy
I was
in
doing.
school?
I was maybe.
That's a no.
Yeah, I just liked the banter. I liked,
You're the chatty kid.
I was a chatty kid. I was a bit
Yeah.
of a class clown. Bit of
The
a
social
bit of a
aspect.
cheeky monkey.
Me too.
I liked the wind up a
Same.
bit too much.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. Did you go to a boys' school or?
No. Just
me.
standard cutthroat
Did
In
you-
Glasgow?
in Glasgow. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you the kind of kid that doesn't matter who you get moved next to, you're still always chatting?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Same.
always at it. I
Same.
could always find
Guilty.
something in common.
Yeah. Nice.
So yeah, I left school and then had kind of no idea what I was going to do. I didn't actually do too bad on the kind of academic side with the results. I don't know what the Aussie equivalent are, but then I needed a job. And there was a local golf academy, a bit of a weird shop. It was like, a golf academy with like die-hard proper golf guys.
Right.
And then like a driving range, and then out of nowhere, an Indian restaurant.
Okay.
And
Makes sense.
Yeah, in the UK, Indian food is like, top.
Yeah.
It's like people absolutely love Indian food.
Yeah.
It's not that big here, is it?
It's not that big here, but we've had in our restaurants, we've had a lot of top quality young Indian guys that have brought a lot of that, and then
Right.
we've had a good mix of people from the UK that are, that's kind of getting a curry on a Saturday night, something that they've
Yeah,
grown
it's a
up
classic.
with, and it's
Curry and a pint.
some people say England's national dish is chicken tikka
Tikka
masala.
masala, yeah.
So it's like that's how much it's ingrained into
Yeah.
the culture, and it's definitely a food that I absolutely love. But yeah, they needed a kitchen porter, so this is going back a bit. It was in the local rag, the local newspaper, called The Extra, and I applied, went in, and just thinking nothing of it. It was £3.20 an hour, which is $6.10 Aussie dollar. And I went in, and I was just washing pots and pans, not really knowing what was going on, but kind of enjoying it. Then after a couple of months, one of the main chefs was like, oh, I like the way you work. I like the, and bear in mind at this point, none of the chefs were actually speaking English, bar one guy. And, they done their own thing. They kept themselves to themselves. They, like to band me up or, wind me up or,
Classic, as you would.
Classic.
Any young kid.
Oh, yeah,
Lowest on the food chain.
Exactly. All the kind of crazy jobs, the bottom of the prep list was always like wash chef's car.
Yeah.
That kind of malarkey. But then, then they invited me into the kitchen to spend a little bit of time, making very basic things, frying pakoras, balling naan breads, and mainly peeling onions into like an industrial bin, which is terrible for the smell. It concentrates it and sweats them.
Oh, yeah.
God knows why that was the method of choice, but that was the method of choice. I'd done that for probably about 8 months, and then one of the main guys, who was the kind of kinder person, he was the main the main uncle, he was the main top dog, obviously the head chef as well. He was he spoke English, and he was a good guy. He looked after me. He was like, I'll give you a lift up, I'll give you a lift home. Yeah. And I'm thinking I'm going to get a bollocking on the way up the road. And
you went anyway.
Yeah, probably. And no, but he just kind of really outlaid it to me. He said, look, this is a really, really brutal job. It's a very difficult industry. But if you have a passion for food and cooking, and you're interested in these things, which, I think I was probably more interested in eating it than cooking it. But I was just hustling. I was just trying to, find my way. But he said, look, you've got to get the hell out of here, and, you've got to try and go and work in one of the best restaurants in Glasgow, which ended up working for a guy called Brian Moll. And Brian, he was the chef of Le Gavroche in London for like 15 years. Then he moved to Glasgow. He went back to Scotland. He opened that restaurant there. I got in just at the right time, where he was like pushing like absolute hell. Everyone in the kitchen was quite young but pretty talented, and like
So what was the transition from there? So you had the talk with the guy, which
talk.
also I think.
What an
Bella,
inspiration!
shout out to Bella.
Yeah, what a
God
king!
bless you.
What a
mate.
legend.
Thanks very much.
But that notion of chefing being so difficult and so hard, and it's hard. Like a lot of jobs are hard. Do you think that that's damaging at all to to people pursuing chefing as a career? Or do you think it's constructive, and people obviously everyone's going to learn in their own time to do it? But do you think it scares a lot of people from it?
I think it like that kind of chat from Bella, it would scare a lot of people off. But I think that's actually positive, because I think it's not. I think he was just kind of highlighting that this is not going to be easy street, and it only going to get harder and harder and harder. Which I think he maybe was politely saying, like, you're not smart, you're not a brain box, but you're not, you've got some, intelligence, but maybe you should look at something. I think he was trying to assist me and point me in the right direction. But to answer your question, do I think it's damaging? I think that, that was different times. That was 20 years ago. Things then, it was brutal in terms of, like, in every aspect. There wasn't, much satisfaction at the kind of lower levels. It was a grind. It was a graft, and there certainly was easier ways to make money, especially when you're earning £3.20 an hour. But I think now things have improved like 100x. It's like that. I wouldn't recognise that world today, even in a relatively short space of time. Yeah. So I think that it's not necessarily damaging. I think that, like, it's just like everything. Some things are for I love football, but I'm shit. So like I never made it as a footballer. But it doesn't mean I've still got passion for it. But for the professional football, you just don't. It's not for everyone. I think that's okay.
Probably filters out the passionate people doing it that way.
Yeah, and I think you need to. It's it's kind of like. Being a chef, or being a restaurateur, or being involved in any form, I think, of the hospitality industry, the kind of job side is second or third. The thing that's keeping you going is the passion.
The attitude.
And it's usually centered around something that maybe you know, you love the technical side, or you love looking after the guests, or you love, in my case, the ingredients and building teams and, you know, motivating people and, you know, going up and going down and going around and finding different ways to keep pushing forward. I think it's just different strokes for different folks. I don't think it's a plus or a negative. I think it's just an honest way of looking at things, and that's very Glaswegian and very UK. And Bella was, you know,
straight to the point.
He was straight to the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was trying to look after me.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, I think maybe that's, now that I'm reflecting on it as you're saying it, I think because as a chef, the status quo is that you are going to give a lot to it, especially if you want to do well, then you need to be aware that if you're going to be having a lot of output, and if it's not something that you truly love, you're not going to be getting that kind of return, because it's not going to be as feels rewarding for you. So you've got to make sure that you really do feel rewarded by it. But I just think because, you know, everyone that we talk to, and I think it's just a known overarching trend, that people are kind of moving away from chefing. I think it's kind of not as many people are choosing it as their career path. And I'm just thinking that might be one of the reasons, because of how difficult a lot of people make it out to be.
You're absolutely right. I think that's there is many contributing factors to it. I think one of them is the obvious one, the very unsociable hours. You know, if you're a young guy going in at 16, 17, 18, you know, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your friends, your family, you're going to miss a lot of events, a lot of things. Like you're basically working every night. You're getting home very, very late. So things that are maybe normal or to other people are that's kind of going to get taken away. And there is obviously a lot of setbacks. You know, there's a check and balance in a kitchen, and same for front of house every day. It's not like maybe you're in a normal job that's maybe office based. You're working on a project with a specific timeline. There's a path, and then
it's very linear.
Yeah, it's very linear, and you're going to see it comes to a head in a group environment, you know, 3 weeks into it. You know, in a kitchen, it's like every hour, you know, your life is run by a clock. It's like, we have to have this ready by this time. Yeah. It's either right or it's wrong. Yeah. It's either the right standard or wrong. Yeah. It's either the bad. Guests are satisfied and happy, or the guests are, you know, something's happened, they're not happy. Yeah. The team is either happy or the team needs love. I think that is a contributing factor, where it's just a difficult environment. Hence why I would say, after there's a couple of, you know, it's like any profession or any skill or craft, it takes constant working at it, and it's like it's more than a job. It's kind of like you need to have a deep-scented passion for like pleasing others, like looking after guests.
I can just tell by the way that you're talking
the passion.
About it. The passion is so...
I'm loving it.
Really, really evident, and you also obviously are thinking about so many different parts of what the restaurant experience is, and that's probably what's helped you, you know, throughout your life. Is that something that you know you just had a natural kind of gravitation towards, or something that you learned by working in some of these top restaurants that you worked in?
That was learned. That was learned. I had a passion for food, but then I got when you're in those styles of restaurants and environments, it's like, if you know, there's good role models within them, and there's bad role models within them, and there's people with certain work ethics, and there's other challenges within them, and the first few years are very hard. You know, they're very difficult, and that's something that in my kitchens and restaurants I try to soften, that kind of like the why, the how, you know, whereas back in the, you know, in time gone past, conversation, you know, investigating dissecting a recipe or instruction, or, you know, how to fillet a fish or something like that, was literally, you know, very direct. It was like, you do this, you do that, and that's how you do it.
Yeah.
And it was
There's no wiggle room.
Fucking do it.
Yeah, and and today, you know, I didn't actually benefit from learning that way. It was only from years gone on, I met another guy who then showed me other ways, but it all comes together in a little bit of a jigsaw.
Cool. So let's go back to it. So you're in Glasgow. You've left the Indian restaurant.
I've left
and
you're going, Mr. Singh's.
Shout out.
Yeah.
And you've gone to work for...
So then I went to work for Brian Mall.
Yeah.
And unfortunately his restaurant just closed after 20 years. just after COVID. But I went in there, and that was a completely and utterly different environment.
And you were 17 or 16? Or?
No, I was 16.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
What
16.
level did you go in at that? Were you a KP again?
No, no, I went in as third commie.
Okay.
This was a very French style ran kitchen where it was like proper brigade system. You know, the kitchen, the KP.
French style is the
Yeah, yeah. It was just,
The
it's
most
just,
intense one.
it's just. I would say people look at only that side of things, but when the way I look at it is that, which is slightly different today, is it's not necessarily that you're being drilled and it's very, you know, disciplinarian and it's very aggressive and macho and all this bullshit. It's not just that. It's that there's strict positions with a core list of values and responsibilities that you're going to be held accountable, whether you're 16 or 35. So that structure is what creates the, because there's the mise en place, the ingredients and tasks that need to be completed for the senior chefs to execute the dishes, and obviously for the restaurant, the service team to be able to, you know, provide the goods to the guest. But then there's all the other stuff that goes on maintaining a section. So like I went in at the you know, the real bottom ring, which is exactly where I should have been going in. You know, because you don't have any knife skills, you're not proficient, your work ethic is you know you're kind of looking around, whereas in that environment is literally what's next.
Right.
That's the kind of energy. And it was friendly enough, you know, but there wasn't talking, you know, you didn't talk. You talked on your break, but there's no real chit chat. We had a bit of banter, but it was more pretty focused. But long, grueling tasks like cleaning, the standard at the level of cleaning was like, you know, enormous.
Crazy.
You know, we scrubbed hard.
In a way, I've seen a lot of kitchens. Never scrubbed that hard in your life. But yeah, I think, you know, it kind of makes sense. I know that everyone obviously wants to have banter and like a fun workplace, but I've heard other chefs speak on this before that have completely silent kitchens. And if everyone has their job and they know what they're doing, then there's actually really no need to talk, because it's obvious. There's not really that much direction that really needs to be going around, right?
I mean, like, I do understand why certain, and I've been in restaurants where they have kind of no you know, it's no talking in the kitchen. I'm not for that. I like my guys to chat, interact, have a bit of banter, have a bit of fun, because it promotes creativity. I want them to be able to talk to talk to each other about, you know, what do you think of this? It needs 10 minutes longer, or, you know, take it out, it needs a longer seal. Or I want them to be able to communicate. So if you're just in a kind of silent environment, I think like the food reflects that. There's certain restaurants that you could look. I can see their, you know, when it's a very polished photo shoot style, not like an iPhone, but something that they're presenting their work, maybe social media, or like a magazine or a cookbook. I can tell what standards will be, or how the kitchen will operate from the reflection of the food.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you give us an example of what you think that would look like?
Well, you know, you can tell, you know, if it's a very, you know, if there's a no silent, if it's a very no silence, if it's like a no talking, quite a quiet environment, you know, quite strict in terms of that. I think the food will be reflective of that. You know, it will be very classical. It'll be executed to the, you know, to the T. There will be, you know, very minimal change to an ingredient pending like its profile. Whereas like I personally think that you should change the cooking pending the profile of the ingredient. Like if you're working with top quality produce, especially vegetables, they're not the same. You know, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they have similar characteristics, but when they're natural, like, they're a little bit different. Sometimes they have a little, they've got a little higher water content. Sometimes they're a little bit curvy, a little bit round. So like in the cooking, you know, that's okay to work with the ingredient. Whereas I think the kind of silent place that you're talking about, they will just go order another 20 kilos and we'll take 4 kilos of the best, so that it's absolute uniform.
So they're all exactly the same.
Yeah. But I mean, that works for some, but that's not my particular thing. I like things to be a little bit more natural.
Right.
The harshness of that environment, the restaurant that you were talking about, do you think that's the best way to develop new chefs, or for new chefs to develop? Do you think it's better for them to be in a bit more communicative?
Well, I mean,
kitchen?
I think that for young chefs need something different than they did before.
Right.
Whereas before, like, you know, that that other style of environment what wasn't fantastic, and I don't think that, you know, I would say that it produced just, you know, it was that was producing, you know, that kind of, if we're talking, there's two different things, you know, there's structure, which I think is a positive thing for a young person learning how to cook. That's things like, you know, you start your day at 9 o'clock, you check your fridge, you empty it out.
You know what you're
You know,
doing.
you check your produce is correct. If there's a problem with the produce, you tell the sous chef calls the purveyor, they go and get the new produce. You start the tasks, you work in a very structure is totally important, because that's like following a recipe. You know, a recipe, you don't just get all the ingredients and fuck it in a pot and hope it comes out.
Yeah.
You follow a distinct
That's how you
set
have
of
a
products,
consistent
because
product.
the head chef has spent time developing, structuring this. You know, they're building the recipe, looking at their team, looking at the skill set, right, okay, we're going to do this way. So I think structure is absolutely vital in training a young person, but the other stuff is, you know, is not, you know, you know, not being able to ask a question, working in silence.
I'd
make
be
sense not
screwed.
being able to
That's
ask a
bullshit.
question.
Like, no,
I love asking
you're
a
talking
question.
about saying a lot of young people, you know, earlier you're saying a lot of young people not choosing hospitality is a thing. I think it's those things.
Right.
You know, like
stigma.
back then, you know, you had 20 years ago in the kitchen, you'd have no one would have a phone in their pocket.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
no one would have a phone in their pocket. I don't even think the chef would have a phone in his pocket, or she would not. You know, there was a phone in the kitchen. If someone needed to call, they called there. You know, so the world's changed. So like, you know, you're right. Young people, I don't think now. We just had a fantastic guy on work experience. He's like 15. Young Cameron, shout out if you're watching. And
Love you, Cameron.
yeah, great guy. And you know, and he's like, I think when I see his personality of how he was working with us, super inquisitive, interested, engaged.
Yeah.
You know, going into the pastry team. Oh, what's this? What's that?
Right.
You know, seeing all the different skill sets within what we offer, and being excited and flourish. Now, would that guy do well in the environments that I came from? Probably not, because it's not that. I think that's from a different time.
Yeah, right.
So I think, to answer the question, structure is totally important for a young chef, but the other
gotta have
crap
the right
that was around
environment.
is not. Yeah, it's no. That's gone.
Would you
You're
have
right, it's
fun? Like, when you came away from one of them chefs, would you say that was fun?
Oh, we had a great time. We loved it, but it was strict. It was very
Yeah.
disciplined. You know, there was a lot of.
Was it kind of like the guys underneath the head guys, you guys all band together?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say it was everyone versus the main guy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but we loved him, and but it
You
was
respected
like,
him.
Yeah, we respected him, but it was tough, and there was a lot. You know, there was a lot of maybe unnecessary things. I think it's like, it just depends on man management. I like to look at you know, my team in any area and go like, you know, you might be absolutely excellent in one field and maybe not so strong in the other field, but you've got that skill. I'll try and extract the two.
The best out of both,
and try and mold it together, because, you know, I've said it quite a few times, but it really is kind of like building restaurant teams. It is kind of like building a football team.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need
Yeah.
11 strikers.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need 11 goalies. You know, you
Yeah.
need a strong midfield. You know, a great defense, and you need some creative flair players, and you need some guys that can get the ball in the back of the net.
Right.
And it is kind of, it's like
Yeah.
that. You know, and that's why I think kitchens are personally, I think, great places for young people, because, you know, each personality can be celebrated. Like, they've
Teaches
each
them a
got a
lot.
skill. Like, I love it when you find
Teaches
you
people
get
to work
chatting to a
together.
young guy and they like tell you this mental background that they've and you would, you know, if you were
wouldn't know.
working in one of those kitchens that was, you know, not allowing communication to flourish, then you would miss out on all of these skills that are just sitting right under
100%.
your nose, but you're
Yeah.
too concerned with yourself as
Of
opposed to your
course.
team.
It's true. I love that.
Yeah.
So how long did you work at Mile? Was it Mile?
I mean, yeah, I think the years are kind of all muddled up, but it was somewhere between 5 and 7 years. I think it was probably 6 years.
And did you work all the
Wow.
way up
Yeah,
there?
I went all the way up to sous chef. So that was like, you know, third call me, second call me, first call me,
Right.
and then
That's quite a short period of
then
time.
call me.
go that high through all the ranks.
Well, you know, there was a high turnover of staff in that. But no, I did. I after I got through that first year, I did start to really fall in love with cooking. I'm watching like Saturday Kitchen, watching all the Ramsay, all the Boyle, everything on YouTube, and I'm studying every
You're
cookbook.
a diehard chef now.
Yeah, I used to go on my, to Waterstones, the bookshop, on my split shift. We used to do 5 split shifts back then. So you start at 7, and then you went on a break after lunch for 1-2 hours, and you came back, done dinner service. There was no like 9.
And that's your life.
Yeah, that's the way it was.
Wow.
That's how you learned. It was all about you got to get set for lunch, but then you got to get ready for dinner and that kind of thing. I'd go to Waterstones and just like read books, read the cookbooks rather than buy them.
New page every day.
Sit with a coffee. So I was there for like 6-7 years. Then I went to Edinburgh.
Nice.
To a restaurant called Number One, which was inside the Balmoral Hotel, which is like quite a prestigious.
That had a star too, right?
Yeah, I had a Michelin star in there, and that chef there, he was very different. A guy called Craig Sandel.
Just quickly back to in Glasgow.
Yeah.
You talk a lot about it being a really harsh environment. Can you recall one of the like a harsh event or something that was said to you, something that happened that
stuck
reflected
in your
that?
mind.
If you want to share it, obviously you don't have to.
Well, I think things like bollockings and shouting and screaming and fucking
Quick definition on bollocking.
A bollocken is basically a
bad telling off.
A strong telling off.
Tongue lashing.
A tongue lashing that can go on for a considerable period of time, just in a very informal manner.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's literally like across the kitchen, like you fucking this and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You fucking
So
idiot.
but there were there was plenty of that, but there was more this which I don't want to like glamorize it or anything like that. That was like in those kitchens. It's no secret that was an everyday occurrence. It wasn't like could you please pass over the potatoes?
Yeah.
It was like fuckface, bring me the potatoes. It was all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I'd say the more kind of like examples of something that was exacting or challenging or difficult, it was the range of ingredients, because this was like very classical French. So it would be like game birds were like snipe, widget, teal, mallard, pheasants, on woodcock pigeons, which would come in still warm. They'd just been shot, so you're plucking them. You're plucking them, you're cleaning them, you're gutting them, you're tying them, you're hanging them. Everything's made from scratch. So it was more that the tasks were extremely demanding. The puff pastry's made from scratch.
Yeah.
Intense. The artichokes are turned. The morels, the girolles, the trompette, everything's cleaned.
Right.
All the sauces are made a la minute, last minute to finish. There's no such thing as a convection oven. Everything's a deck oven.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's the prep.
It's more the nature of the task is super challenging, that it puts enormous pressure on you. There's no things like brat pans or tilt skillets. Everything's just made in like large pots. It's very demanding. You're passing a 100-liter stock pot. It's everything's all the fish. Everything's whole. It's like it's
crazy. So much work. So much. Prep.
So much work. So much, and every technique. Like how a scallop is opened in a shell. You do 200 of them or clean 200 langoustines.
Yeah.
Every week. Your hands are cut to shreds. Your arms are burnt.
Yeah.
It's those things that wear you down. The other stuff, like I always try and explain it like there was no other, like that just was the kitchen, the kind of bollockings, the shouting, the kind of nonsense communication, the kind of, I suppose, picking on guys and all that kind of stuff, or that was like earning your stripes. It kind of was. It wasn't like it was kind of like looking at television, black and white. There was no color.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't. When people are like, "Oh, but did you not feel like you could go into like there was no other option? That was how it was.
Just was what it was.
Yeah, and you go and you do
accepted
stages
it.
in other places, and it was the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you moved on to
I went to Number One.
Number One.
Yeah, which was a completely different environment because it was inside a 5-star hotel.
French?
It was kind of French influence. I would say it was French. Yeah, it was French influence. Again, it was quite classical in its approach. But like we just had access to like a new range of unbelievable products. In the first place, we kind of mainly worked just within Scottish ingredients, but there we would just get everything from we used all our shellfish and game and things like asparagus, strawberries, fruit, all the classic things that Scotland's known for. We would champion Scotland, but we also had the money and the access, the resources to tap into Runge's market in France.
Yeah.
Whereas the epicenter of produce. So then I started to understand that there's not just that a peach isn't a peach, but a peach can grow in another region, coming from somewhere that gets more sun, which is vital in the progression of a chef, is understanding that the ingredients are...
There's the science behind it.
Yeah, well, or just the quality goes up, and it gets better and better and better, which is you're oh fucking hell, it's that re-energizes you, yeah, and you start to see a whole range of new ingredients, whereas in the first place we cooked completely within the seasons. But I would know what the foie gras garnish was going to be in autumn as what it would be in spring.
Yeah.
We knew because it was in a realm of ingredients where in the other in number one they're a little bit more open, experimental, and we worked with, we had our paws on some other budgets, and I think we had a far superior budget. Being in a 5-star hotel, so it was kind of it was kind of a joy to go into that.
Very
the
different.
kitchen,
What was your position there that you went in?
So I think I went in there as chef de partie, and then I ended up leaving as sous chef.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was more
But
experimental.
they're the best years. They're the best years. The chef de partie, sous chef years. They're the absolute...
Better than head chef.
Oh fuck aye.
Really?
Oh, it's brilliant. It's just you're just cooking.
Why do you say that?
You just cook. Oh, because your focus is only your focus is really just inside the walls of the kitchen or the kitchen environment. You're kind of beginning to have interactions with the front of house. You're always having interactions in a friendly way, like how are you, or going out for drinks or doing whatever. But in terms of responsibilities crossing over, now you may need to liaise with the front of house or the bar team or whoever, but your world is really just within the kitchen.
Right.
So and you've done all that hard graft of coming chef de partie.
Yeah.
So
And then now it's your first foray, so you're on fire. You just and you once you get to a certain point, you kind of do have a good repertoire and quite a good work ethic and stamina, and you can really be a strong asset to the head chef, because when you need to put the hammer down, you can put the hammer down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In terms of blasting out the...
So that's
getting us over the line.
Is it the best because it's where you're still really hands-on?
Well, you're still really hands-on as a head chef, but it's more that the language that you've spent so much time learning, you can now speak it.
Right.
So you can start to see how a raw, before you're just taking instruction from the chef, cooking the recipes, and then they're showing you this is how it's finished, this is for service, this is how we pick it up, this is how it gets onto the plate. But it's a bit of a struggle to see how to compose a dish. But then once you kind of get to the sous chef level, you start to have your own ideas from your own influences of being oh, you know what? I wonder what happens if you rather than cooking the the beans in water, we cook them in an aromatic chicken stock, and you start to build your own curiosity, and then
it's more experimental.
It's a little bit more experimental, but you've got the skills behind you to start answering some of the questions that you've got in your own mind, which you're not going home just studying through a book trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of making your own path now.
Yeah, you're making your own path. It's good fun.
And then when did you? After that was Melbourne.
Now, after I was there for, I think 3 years, I had two really good head chefs there, Craig Sandel, Billy Boyter, both Michelin star chefs, on their own rights, out with the restaurant. And then from there, I went to New York. I went to 11 Madison Park.
11 Madison Park. Yeah.
What was that like, by the way?
That was amazing. I think I was probably 23, 24, went to New York with nothing but, a little bit of cash in my bank account.
What sparked that change?
Sparked that change was I I just felt it was changed. I was either going to go to London, France, or New York. I wanted to go to either a 2 or a 3-star Michelin restaurant, and the option in Scotland would have been Andrew Fairley's, which is an absolutely amazing restaurant. But I felt that was very similar to what I was actually doing.
You wanted to change.
I wanted to change, and plus I wanted to like venture out, and I kind of, a lot of my friends had done the kind of London thing, so I was kind of feeling something different. I was a bit intimidated to go to France or Spain because of the language barrier.
Really?
One of my close friends was working in a very top restaurant in France, and the stories were fucking wild.
Because of the way that it was run, or because of the language barrier?
Because of the level and because of the language barrier.
Yeah.
You know, he's 3-star Michelin, and you know, and one of the stories he always tells me was like, and this guy was a head chef in a 2-star Michelin restaurant. He was doing really well himself, and he said that it was just like he had spent so much time trying to learn conversational French, but where he would fall down was, you know, there would be like 9 variations of duck. So when he gets sent to the cool room, he knew canard, but he didn't know any of the other words. So he's just like, fuck, he's got to go back to the main guy. And that gets grating on people very, very quickly.
And where are you at that time? So you're 23, moving to New York.
Yeah, I think I'm 23. Yeah, I think I'm 23.
Still
24.
so young.
How are you? What's your mindset towards this whole thing?
My mindset was absolutely
You wanna be
fully
the best.
dedicated to work with I've absolutely
You loved
no other concern for like doing anything else.
Did you want to be the best? Was that your mentality?
No, I wanted to learn as much as possible. Being the kind of being the best stuff, that wasn't really, you know, I don't think I have that kind of ego persona where it's like I wanted to be an absolute craftsman within my own right and really understand the field and then grow and evolve within the industry. But I didn't. I was going in search for continued learning to increase my skills and get exposure to a whole range of other things.
Yeah.
So then, like, you know, I went, the first guy that I worked with, Brian, in Glasgow, he actually took me to New York, and we went and done a game dinner there for, you know, I think it was part of like Scottish tourism or something.
Yeah.
We went to a really top quality restaurant, so I think we went for a week. So I got a taste of it.
Right.
Then
so you
I
were
was
going in completely blind.
I was going in, well, I went and he took, you know, after the dinners that we done, he took me to like Daniel, Bernardin, all the big, you know, heavy hitting restaurants, and some other like, you know, just not so famous restaurants, but just absolutely solid places.
Amazing.
Yeah, like I think the Americans have a style of restaurant that the way they offer hospitality in terms of the service is just absolutely exceptional. It's very, even though they're usually large volume places, like well over 150 covers, but the way that they deliver it is like, you know, you feel that, you know, you're the only restaurant, the only table in the restaurant. I think that's an absolute skill and a master, and something you don't often find. And so I was intrigued by all of these restaurants. So I'd done the usual thing, you know, emailed all the, you know, just basically started working down the Michelin
You
guide.
just cold.
Cold, oh aye, absolutely.
You cold, and you got the job.
Cold and got the job, yeah, but it was a rigorous process to get it. But like, you know, that's the only way you get anything. You don't ask, you don't get. Like, you got to hassle,
Speaking of what
harass.
gets the grease.
You know, they don't answer the email.
Yeah.
3 days later, I'm back.
Ellie
Hello.
knows about that.
Yeah.
I've got Ellie right now on the most intense lead gen for
yeah.
Heart Media for us now.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like what?
Well, getting shot down.
Yeah.
Not getting shot down, just getting aired.
Learning what it's like to get rejected.
Yeah. It's
But
tough.
you know,
But
just
you
move
learn a
on.
lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes you thick-skinned.
Yeah, it makes you. Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely. That's a vital skill.
In life.
Yeah.
In
For
the
sure.
beginning, it's challenging. I know because we've been doing this for a few years now. In the beginning, when people start saying no, you're like, is it me?
Yeah,
What have I
take it
done?
personal.
You take it so personal. It's like, what could I have done better? But some people just, it's not the right time, and it might hit them up later, and it will be the right time, and that's when you can work together. But some people just aren't like in that buying mindset or want you for you at that time, or they don't trust you enough or something.
Yeah.
And that's fine, because there's so many people in this world, and you can obviously always
Yeah,
get
and
more
plus,
work.
especially in, you know, today's circumstances, difficult times out there. So I think, you know, people are probably a little bit, you know, more
More
likely
wary.
to say no if there's any kind of financial burden.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
true.
That's
Yeah.
something to-
If it's a freebie, they'll say yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
so
yeah.
true.
Yeah.
No, I always say that. I say it to a lot of people that I speak to. I say we're not for everyone.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, you get what you pay for as well. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of people that will do things for cheaper, and that's reflected in their work, and it is what it is.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Same thing with you. I mean, your restaurants, I assume, are not the cheapest.
Yeah, that's true.
They're not
Yeah.
the cheapest, and that's kind of like a qualifier. But that means that people that do really want to,
It's the right clientele.
have that experience are willing to pay that money, and that's good because those are the kind of people that you'd want to be eating your food anyway, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, quality costs money.
It does.
You know?
Beautiful.
does.
So, 11.
Yeah, so I went and they, Chef James Kent, who's actually passed away last year, the absolute legend. I don't know if you were following it, but there's a mega outreach in social media about this guy, an absolute legend. He writes me back and he's like, we can give you a trial, but I can't promise anything, and the visa's going to be tricky. And I'm like, fuck. And I live in Madison Park at that point. He just released this cookbook, and I just loved that style of cuisine. It was very, very refined. The flavor profile was classic but modern. And it just had so much character and personality within the. I could feel it coming off of the pages.
Mm-hmm.
So when he sent back, I said to my wife now, but my girlfriend at the time, I was like, man, we've got to just take a punt here and just go for it.
Just go. Once
So
in a lifetime
I set up
opportunity.
2 other trials. I think the other one was with Paula Bryant, but it wasn't Corton. It was oh no, I think it was Corton. I went and booked the flights, just took an absolute chance, got a hostel, went in, done the 2 days or whatever it was, and had to do a cook off to get the job. And
You
then
cooked off against another.
yeah, he
another
cooked
chef?
off against another guy,
Yeah.
which is always super intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it comes back to that kind of thick skin. They're at that
Pressure makes
level.
diamonds.
They were operating on a completely different level to the UK. They were very
Yeah.
professional, very disciplined, and
Yeah.
there was no screaming or shouting. There was very little raised voices.
Yeah.
It was just
Really?
literally pass or fail.
Yeah.
It was
passed.
opportunity. Yeah.
How did it feel? How did it feel to beat that guy?
It felt great. Yeah, I think I remember I was in a pub round the corner directly after it, having a wee pint, just being like, "Fucking yes."
Let's go.
Because it was a big risk. It was a really big risk because if I didn't get the job there, I had pretty much no money to get. I would have had to. I don't know how I would have.
Stayed in the country.
Well, I didn't have the job. I just went on a tourist visa.
Yeah.
Because I got the trial, and then they were like, right, cool, we'll give you the job. You need to go back to the UK. Then you get your visa process
Yeah.
through that. So
Right.
that was a whole, dick around getting
How
that.
was managing the relationship with your girlfriend through this whole thing? Like, you've been
Very hard.
dedicated. What age did you meet her?
I think I was 18 or
18.
19.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Right.
now she's wifey.
Now she's wifey.
Ooh.
wifey.
Respect that relationship.
Yeah.
That's a long time. for you
Yeah,
guys
it
to
is.
be
We
together.
got a beautiful son now as well.
Do you?
Congrats.
Yeah, a little 19-month-year-old.
Oh, what's his
way.
name?
Training him up. He's in the kitchen doing service tonight. No, he's called Archie.
Love that
Okay.
name.
Yeah.
Beautiful
Yeah.
boy.
But it does take it is very difficult on the partners.
Yeah.
Of
What is she-
restaurant people.
Is she in the industry as well?
No,
or-
she's not. No, she's
Yeah.
in child education.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Did she go with you to New York?
Well, that's a bit of a story, that one. So
Oh,
like
right.
she went and I got approved my visa and Jenna didn't get approved her visa, which is horrible.
Sticky one, yeah.
Yeah, sticky one. And then, so I went out ahead, and we're thinking that she would just come on a tourist visa,
Yeah.
like a whatever it is, 90-day ESTA visa. And then, so like EMP gave me the day off because I meant to go and pick her up from JFK Airport. But then like she's not like I'm not getting any messages come through. And then I
Wow.
get one through, and it's like they didn't let me on the plane because within that time frame she'd been rejected for the other visa, so we're actually apart for a year, which
No
was
way.
A whole
difficult.
year.
A whole year.
That's
I went
crazy.
back. We met in London. we met in London for like a week during it, but that was it because
What
she
was-
couldn't get in and I couldn't leave because then the Americans there's no annual leave.
Yeah. What was going through your head at the time? How did that feel? Being away from your
Very
from your
hard.
partner.
Very hard.
Yeah,
It was
'cause
difficult.
One, you've got kind of the guilt of.
Yeah, you got the guilt.
You've got the
big
guilt
time,
of
you got the
being
guilt.
like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm doing this. It's selfish, but then also you don't have her there to support you, as well. So how did it feel? What were you thinking?
No, you are struggling with guilt for sure, but like you gotta understand like where you came from in terms of like as a chef. Like you've literally came from a golf academy. Now you've got this opportunity. Like we don't go to university or things like that.
Yeah.
The path
it's kind
in
of climbing the ranks through restaurants.
climbing the ranks.
Yeah.
So like to get an opportunity like that, we both knew like I had to do this.
Yeah.
And even to just get the visa is really, really difficult. So it was difficult, but we survived.
Yeah.
That's the most important
So
thing.
because one of the hardest things just about being passionate about any industry is managing that with your partner, right?
Yeah.
Even for us.
You know, you
as
definitely need a special
person.
a person that understands because
How is
you will be working a lot.
Yeah.
And like, modern or and today or back then, if you are
Still
the leader
hours.
or you are the main person or you are a big contributor to the restaurant in some form or play, whether you're the manager or the what, you do have different responsibilities. When you're so passionate about it, they do blend into one another.
Yeah.
So you do need to have an understanding
Yeah.
person.
That's beautiful that you
Yeah.
were able to manage that.
Yeah,
the entire
I'm lucky.
time.
I'm lucky.
How's that kind of developed over the years? Now you have your own places. Are you kind of, being more stepping away and doing less hours?
Well, I try. I try, but the challenge is because you're always on the grind, you're always on the hustle, you're always trying to push the restaurants forward. So, like necessarily, if you're not in the kitchen or on the floor, most likely you're doing something else to drive things forward
Right.
in one way or another.
Externally.
So like whether it's an event, whether it's something like this, whether it's like last week there, one of my young chefs, DC Daniel, he just won San Pellegrino Chef of the Year. So it was there's 5 judges, 10 chefs.
Wow.
Each chef has a mentor. So it might be something like that. They're all the restaurant has many different. It's like a little ecosystem. There's many different things that come out. Some chefs will have farmland, or they'll have they'll be working on a farm, or maybe they have other interests, or they have other revenue generating avenues. So you're always there's always something that you're doing, and so like. The short answer is yes, I am trying to. I have actually just gone through a little bit of a restructuring phase that I'm for that reason to try and do a little bit less and concentrate in a few other areas. But a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
There's certain things that like you just have to do as the leader. That you need to push that forward.
When it's all said and done, and knowing the position that you're in now, would you say that being a chef and the kind of path that you've chosen was worth all the, I guess, personal sacrifice along the way?
Yeah, for me personally, I think it was worth all the pain and all that crazy stuff, like this personal sacrifice, being away from your partner, grueling hours, taking a lot of shit, a lot of rejection. You get hit with a lot of rejection. Even the difficult period when you first become a head chef, and then you're being critiqued by the media and other people within the restaurant, and you talk about a thick skin, you fucking develop a thick skin there and then. Reading comments, reading reviews, all of those things.
Yeah.
But you get to a point where you're like, you are very you feel like you've accomplished the skill set that you wanted, and then you start to look for other challenges.
Yeah.
So I personally think the trade-off but that is because I'm still in love with the
You're so
industry
passionate, yeah.
and the and restaurants.
Yeah.
Farmers, produce, beverage, wine. I love it all. I love the people. I love the guests. I'm still
Love
in
the
that, but I meet
stories.
other people in the same boat who say to me, they're like, "Fuck, I can't wait until I'm done."
Yeah.
I get everyone gets like that when the chips are stacked against you, but I'm still fully in love with restaurants and the whole thing. So I'm not waking up like fuck, counting down the days.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe that day will come, but when that day comes, I'll be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't see it coming. I hope not.
Yeah. What do you think is a controversial opinion that you hold about the fine dining industry that most people will be shocked to hear?
What is a controversial opinion? Give me some other kind of context on that. That's a broad range. Like what's
What's
an
something-
example of something someone might have said, so I can kind of.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Something about the fine dining. I don't know, the industry and like the way that the kitchens have to be set up and like what the whole thing is, that I don't know, something that you think about it that people might be shocked to hear because you're so inside.
I think something that maybe like to the people outside hospitality might be shocked to hear would be how really thin the margins are and how expensive like things that people, whenever you talk to maybe other business people or random people who have a passion for restaurants, or they're curious about restaurants and they're like looking through the lens, they always have the most simplistic solutions to extremely complex problems. And they think that like, why don't you just charge more or charge less, or if it was just 20 but like to look after your number one, looking after your team, paying them correctly, properly, supporting them, mentoring them, giving them opportunity, creating the environment, maintaining the restaurant so that it's absolutely schmick. When a bit of damage happens, these things, a machine breaks down, getting it fixed straight away. These are huge burdens to restaurants. Having ethical and having sustainability in your mindset, so you're making certain decisions that are increased costs. I think people would be truly shocked. They look at something now, and the one that you always see in the media is like, a steak now is, even in a pub is $52, but you're like, fuck it, like strip that
It's
right
worth
back.
it.
Yeah.
They're making fuck all on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, and if it's just so expensive to operate, I think people think that that's some sort of like smoke screen, and just some sort of bullshit story that's just because times are hard. But it really is like wildly. I think that's something. But yeah, it's becoming harder and harder to
in this
operate.
industry, I understand, because we obviously understand because we work with a lot of restaurants and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of people that I know, they see, you've got a good restaurant, you've got one hat, two hats, you must be making buttloads of money, right? But it's not actually the case, because the better ingredients that you use, the more expensive the ingredients are, the margins are still small, they're just on like a higher price range.
Yeah, and the larger you scale up, you need an enormous support system in there. Like you've got people in reservations, people in sales, people in marketing, you've got people in graphic design, social media, you've got a bookkeeper, you've got an accountant, you've got HR. These are serious amount of money that necessarily maybe that's what people would be shocked. I'd say not even 5 years ago there would be restaurateurs, restaurant groups, chefs, however you want to say them, with multiple things happening that wouldn't have that infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah.
That infrastructure is a serious cost that was not there.
It's very expensive.
10 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And back then people were being paid for 40 hours a week and working 80. So in
Yeah.
a short space of time, there's a whole new medium that's been, this huge amount being bolted onto the business.
So many changes.
Yeah, that come with huge expense, and
costly.
like there's only so much the consumer, the guest can pick up, and now we're clearly maxed out, where everyone's trying to figure out new ways to do things, because people are strapped and are definitely dining a little bit less, or being choosing
More picky.
being a bit more picky, and that's a challenge for the industry. So maybe that's a myth, that it's not all sunshines and rainbows,
of course.
making the correct decisions are fucking expensive.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't understand. They think they think this is a A or B choice. It's absolutely not. There's so many things that you need to consider.
You spoke earlier about getting to a point where you feel like you've gained the skills that are that you wanted to. Do you remember a moment where you felt that? Can you remember a moment in time where you thought to yourself, "Oh, I've done it. This is kind of like where I want to be as a chef." Do you recall that?
No, I think that I still don't think that I have that full set of skills. I'm always trying to refine it, work on it, nurture it, improve on it. But I think that a moment where I was like, I would say satisfied, was when I felt like I was when I used to think about opening my own restaurant or being the main person for a restaurant. It used to give me like anxiety, and a lot of people listening will know what I'm talking about. You think like, fuck, how can I do this, blah blah blah, or do that. Once that feeling's gone away and you're literally only thinking like, I can't wait to do it, then you know that you're like, maybe have the skill set. And another wee tell is like when you can like multiply, when you can like train people, and you're not intimidated, or you're not worried that they're going to outshine you. You're very happy for when they are doing well, and then you start to realize like, oh, you know what, like maybe that part of my skill set is I can develop talent. Is that something that is a valuable skill that I now have? And then it's like you realize that restaurants are not really just about one person. You got to like get that kind of out of your mind. And I think that short answer is not fully. Don't think that I'm the be all and end all, and still got shitloads to learn, which I'm always learning as best as I can. But the moment is like, and I think that you're no longer worried or scared about opening something, putting yourself out there. You need to have that
humility so that you can grow.
Absolutely. And like the people that I've got, guys that have been working with me for a long period of time, 5-6 years, and I've got newer people that have been there 2 years. But when you see them start to flourish, that is more satisfying than being the one doing it yourself. It's a very nice feeling to see people go off, and you're like, and then when they do really well, send you a wee message saying, thank you for this and that. That is good motivation, and it does make you feel like you're having an impact, as opposed to just serving the dishes, which is super important as well, and looking after the guests. But from a growth perspective,
I guess that's where your kind of role becomes multifaceted, and that's the evolution of you as a chef, right? Because at the beginning you're worrying just about the food, now you're thinking about the team and the whole experience and everything. We can now, I think, move on to the now. We've been talking so much about so many different things. Now you have Yugen Tea House and
Omnia.
Yeah,
and we have an event space called the Grand Room, and another part of that's called Bromley Gallery. With an artist, David Bromley. He's an absolute Melbourne legend. And we also have got a restaurant that we do at Marvel Stadium in the Diamond Club called Altus.
Right.
Which is a new thing we done last year with the AFL.
Beautiful.
Nice. So we got a bit going on.
Full.
Yeah, we've got a bit going on.
Sorry, go.
What made you move to Australia?
So what made me move to Australia, if I'm brutally honest, was that once I came back from New York, I went back to Scotland, and my now wife, she wanted to travel, but like deep down, I really just wanted to get back to the next plate, the next kitchen, and keep progressing. But then we thought, like, we'll start in Australia, and then we just never left. Came to Australia, started working at Vue de Monde. Shannon Bennett convinced me to stick around. I ended up getting sponsored, and then we've been here for 10 years, which was a great decision. But I think like what made us choose Australia was like, so it's the same for everyone coming out of the UK. It's like the weather. I knew of the restaurants. Like, I love cookbooks. Like, I'm a big collector of cookbooks, like most chefs. And there's a cookbook, Pier, and it was an absolute masterpiece. And that restaurant had closed, and that was like my first kind of understanding of Australian restaurants was Pier. Then I started.
I had a chef on here actually that used to work at Pier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I had got to go there. I mean, we don't have that kind of fish in the UK, so it was like things like jewfish, coral trout, cobias and all interesting creatures, which was, if you love produce and ingredients, it was very exciting to see that. And then obviously the internet, restaurants were now starting to have like websites. At first they were kind of like teletext websites, and then they actually started to like, use them as mediums of storytelling. And then Vue de Monde had a like unbelievable website.
They've got a good website now, actually.
They got a good website now.
Use it for a lot of inspiration sometimes.
Oh yeah,
it's very simple.
Yeah, very
and
simple.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this one that they had back then, it was like they had an archive of all of their dishes, and it was like the evolution of where they'd gone, and I just loved it.
Yeah.
And I knew of Attica and a couple of other places in Sydney, but yeah, so I ended up there. Then that was it. I've kind of stayed on in a visa, and then I've been here for 10 years,
Nice.
maybe 11 years.
That's it. Came here on
The
a holiday,
dates are
never
all
left.
came on a holiday, never left. Probably what's going to happen to you,
Oh,
Yeah.
don't tell my mum that.
because that's what
She wants me
that's what
back.
happens to. This
We're
is what happens
keeping
to,
her
Yeah.
It's a fight.
I had to break it to mum recently, telling her that she's gonna
Yeah.
have to stay here. They didn't
So
like
many
it.
I've had so many guys over the years that they're like, you know what, I'm going back to London. They go back, right, and see within 6 months they're like
back.
they're on the text. They're like, "Fuck, can you get me back in?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, I'm not the government." Yeah.
You got pulled with the government. We've got a question that we ask all of the guests. It's actually a fantasy question.
Oh yeah.
Okay. If you could have,
keep it clean.
Doesn't sounds weirder than it is. If you could collaborate with anyone, time and place not an issue, so they can be dead or alive. Doesn't have to be in your industry. It can be anything that you're into. Who would it be?
Oh, I've got a fair few answers for that. It depends what genre we're going in, because that's just
First one that pops
First
into
one
your
that
head.
pops to your head, yeah.
It's probably got to be Thomas Keller.
Thomas Keller.
Yeah, Thomas Keller, famous chef in America. He's just an absolute master of the arts. And like, I love his story. It wasn't all in the early years. It wasn't all success. And then how he evolved, and like he's trained so many phenomenal chefs. He's like there's an army of people have came from his dining rooms and his kitchens. So if it was like culinary, it would probably be TK.
I like
There's so
that
many chefs that could
TK.
be. Yeah.
Shout out.
Yeah.
I love it when I think like the really chefy chefs always have a chef.
Yeah.
As their
I've
collaboration response.
got like chefs in
Outside
all
of chefs?
genres. Outside of like I'm a keen tennis player. I'm actually in a
I love tennis.
I do. Well, we've got a tennis club that's all chefs. Shout out Royal
Right.
Faulkner.
So you got a tennis club just for chefs?
Just for chefs in Melbourne. Yeah,
That
we
is
play
so
we
cool.
play every Monday. Yeah,
'Cause that's
and
the chef's day off.
it's the chef's day off. Yeah,
Yeah.
we take it quite serious.
cool.
We take it quite serious. It's quite competitive.
Where'd you
Okay.
play?
We play in South Yarra at Faulkner Park.
Do you win?
I'm all right. I'm not number one. I'm probably sitting around number 3. I'm getting better.
Should we give a shout out to number one?
Number 1's Hugh Allen from Vue de Monde.
Bloody hell,
Alan
you. Bloody
But
hell.
number 2 is Chris Marshall from Vue de Monde also. But Hugh,
The
mate,
Beautiful boys, they're dominating.
Yeah.
Hugh's- they're good. They're good. But I think I'm improving.
I
I
reckon
don't
you've
want
got
to say
him.
too much because
You've
we're in.
got him. You've
You
got
got
him.
him. We're backing you. Let's put a bet on.
When's
Some
the
of them-
championship?
Well, the last Hugh won the last championship.
Oh.
Unfortunately, Andy
I'm
won.
not liking the sound this
Andy
year.
won the Grand Slam in Hamilton Island. Unfortunately,
Oh.
but we're coming for him. He's got a few years on us. He's a bit younger than us. He's 5 years younger than most of us. So, but we're coming for him. We're determined. It's like
I
that
can
story
hear it
in
in
the
your
early
voice.
years when it was
Determination.
everyone versus the chef.
Yeah.
It's like everyone in the club versus him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all.
He
It's
deals
all
well with pressure then.
yeah, no, there's
He'd have a bunch of chefs rallying against him.
No, there's a load of talented guys in there.
Yeah.
Samuel Holman, John Demetrius, PJ Powell,
Yeah.
Hunter Whedon,
Yeah.
David Bell. There's heaps of
Beautiful.
talented people in there,
Yeah.
but we do take it quite seriously. And then of course
Piss
there's lunches and there's
Yeah.
there's
Classic
ups.
stuff.
yeah
So you spoke about Hugh HK, was it Hugh
TK.
TK?
Yeah.
Because he's developed a lot of chefs, personal development. What's your mentality on personal development? What do you do for yourself to push yourself further into that next stage? Is that like where you're at right now in your life?
Yeah, I think that is a fair. I am actually at that point and trying to allocate time for that now that I'm, also, overseeing businesses and things like that. It's not just within the culinary landscape. I'm pushing myself to, by a range of things, by talking to other people in different industries. Some of them actually were restaurant guests that I've now just became friends with, and some of them other people have connected who have maybe
can never
been
have a bad conversation. Huh?
Yeah, very open, honest, but maybe they were in the build stage that like where we are. Where Omnia is 5 years, and since we started the project in November, and fuck, we've had some what a hell of a ride from COVID reopening, the COVID boom. Economic change, interest rates, all these. We've been through the full ringer, but we've done really, we've done well. We always keep scrapping. So I try and speak with like-minded people. I have, one guy, Nikola Milojosevic, who's started the restaurants with me, who now does other things. He's a fantastic entrepreneur, so he's really good to chat to, and then other guys are just people that have just got mental stories that you can always get a little bit, when you're kind different perspective, exactly, because when you're,
it's very important.
It's super important, and like you really are shocked by how many people are just in the same. You think that like, oh God,
You're the only one.
I'm the only one. Like fuck, but no one understands. Yeah, you go and have a dinner with someone who's like people that started fashion businesses. Some of the chat that they give me are like, pooh. It's very inspiring, it's because they go through the same thing. So I try and find like-minded people, plus some of my previous chefs or previous restaurant guys that I've worked with. I'll call them up if I'm in a sticky situation and be like, look, here as a soundboard, and they'll often give me a different perspective. And some people just tell you, they give you it straight, like what you actually need to hear.
Yeah.
That like, the issue's the issue's not actually.
I think a lot of the time when it comes to those kinds of decisions, it's you actually know what the right answer is. A lot of the time, but you just need someone to tell you.
Totally.
And just so you can be like, no, you're right.
You're in denial a little bit,
Yeah.
You're just making excuses for you to soothe the stress.
Yeah.
Beating around the bush.
Yeah, and the kitchen life, that you get that at all the levels, where like you might think that something's great, but like if the guests are telling you that it's not great, it's fucking not.
That's it. That's the bottom line.
Listen
If you don't have customers coming back,
it's not great.
That's the reason.
Yeah.
If the but you've got to try and encourage that open dialogue, and I think that it's super important for refinement and your own personal development.
Being aligned with a lot of entrepreneurs, if you were going to give one piece of advice to somebody that wanted to start their own thing, basically in any field, what would that be? I
think that it would be, first of all, if you can gain any form of experience, even if it's just work experience for free, in and about the circle that you're going to be going into. So like, if you maybe say you're going to go and start a cafe, you may be a great barista, but like, do you actually understand what's involved, the full package, from how to start, how to actually set up the business, how that all flows. So my main bit of advice would be, it's not just writing a business plan or things like that. It would be try and get some experience and find someone that you can learn from and ask questions for. I think that would be a great piece of advice. And then the other bit of advice that I'm trying to get better at is, man, you got to celebrate the wins.
Yes.
You got to celebrate the wins, and it doesn't mean just getting fucked out of your face or booze and taking tea. There's other ways to do it, that are more.
I think it's about understanding the win. You don't have to. It's not about actually having a party celebration of the win. It's about reflecting.
That's right.
Having the reflection and thinking about where you've come from, where you are now, and like, for instance, if I was going to if I told myself 4 years ago that I would be here now, I'd be so stoked.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be so happy. But in the day to day, you get caught up in the little like micro wins, and you might be having little micro losses and be thinking, I can't do this anymore. It's so difficult. Blah blah blah. I'm not getting anywhere. But really, you are.
No, and that's it exactly. And it's
Yeah.
like the wins are just not financial or accolades. Like that's a
Yeah.
big thing. Is like you need to look when you've navigated through a difficult period. Like I always like to try and like plan ahead as much as I can. And sometimes the restaurant needs an injection of maybe new people or new fresh energy, new ideas, new dishes, new ways we interact with the guest or whatever. And I try and get the right people on the right, on the bus in the right seat at the right time. And sometimes, like, if you actually write that pathway down, if you look at the work that you put in to bring that together with fully conscious in your mind that you're setting this up for your team to drive at home. And then when they drive at home, you go and experience it and it's better than what you thought. Just sending the guys an email or just having a team meeting the next day and being like, it's brilliant is great, but then just moving on to the next task, never actually taking a chance to go like,
to reflect.
that was an unbelievable amount of work.
Yeah.
Nothing, we're not going to see a financial drive or an accolade or a thing. It's not going to be immediate, but personally, like the mission that you had to do to bring that to life. I think that that would celebrate the wins.
Yeah.
What would you say are your brand pillars?
Brand pillars are, I think, is number...
For yourself personally, yeah.
All right, for myself personally, I think is
Personal
like
brand pillars.
absolute dedication to the pursuit of excellence, really. Not perfection, but the drive for excellence in terms of like how that, and how that comes through everything, through the product selection, the relationship with suppliers, how I nurture my team, how I approach, who I'm working with or who I'm not working with. That kind of endless pursuit of kind of creativity and excitement really all ties back to something being of quality and value to whoever it is getting it, because like I say, you become like the chef. You become the chef. Those cooking values are like who you are.
Yeah.
So I think that and it's not about like having the most expensive things. It's about the people behind the product.
Yeah.
Like I work with the same asparagus farmer. I could go and work with a cheaper guy. But I work with this guy. I've been working with him for 10 years. He's 82. I love his asparagus. I love the flavor. I love him as a person. I love his, their husband and wife team. Like,
it's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful, and they know the standard that I'm expecting from and looking at them. But we have open dialogue. He would tell me like the reins, this isn't what you want, but and I think it's that commitment to quality.
Yeah.
I think that's what I love, and I love that in everything. It's not about like money or accolades. It's like a commitment, dedication to trying to do better, and not in an egotistical way, in a way of like how that was good, but like how can we push on quietly and diligently. Yeah.
Beautiful. I think that's about all that we have time for.
Yeah, no worries.
Big podcast.
Yeah.
Big chats. Covered a lot. It was
We did cover a
absolutely
lot.
fantastic getting to speak to you, man. We could talk for a really long time.
You're
And,
a very inspiring and positive person, is what I've taken from this.
Yeah, well, thanks.
I love it.
And
Very
I've
passionate.
loved what you said. Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful to have you on. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks
thank
for your
you.
time.
Thanks for having me on.
That's it. Beautiful.
Up the Scotland.
Up the Scotland.
What a legend.
All right.
That was great.